Hi, I'm Alan Smith. You know, the garden offers so many wonderful fragrances and flavors to stimulate our senses. So in today's show, I thought we would celebrate some of the finer things Mother Nature offers us. We'll start by talking to an olive oil connoisseur who will share his enthusiasm and help us understand that not all olive oils are created equally. Next, we'll visit the fields of an olive oil producer who tells us why he's bringing the old world traditions of his native Italy to the relatively new olive oil market of California, and learn a little of what goes into making good wine and the role roses play at one California vineyard. We'll also get some tips from a winemaker on keeping wine fresher longer, and an interesting history lesson on the origins of champagne. And we'll visit a festival celebrating the tomato and its rich heritage, so stick around. Since ancient times, oils have been regarded as a precious commodity, the ultimate gift. Today, the range of olive oils available to us is greater than ever before. To help us understand some differences in these oils, I asked Tom MacArthur, owner of an olive oil store, for some tips on how to select from the many choices. What's the taste difference between virgin and extra virgin olive oil? Can I distinguish that difference?
Alan, there are 4 grades of olive oil. The very top, the very finest oil is called extra virgin. The next level is virgin oil, and virgin oil is allowed to have trace elements of defect in it. The third level is called ordinary, and that's what most people buy. And then the last quality of oil is called lampante, but it's tasteless. All the quality, all the taste has been taken out of it. Now, we've said a few words about extra virgin oil. I would want to say, who says it's an extra virgin olive oil? Is it really? And what is the date on that bottle? You see, olive oil has a shelf life of roughly 18 months to 2 years. And so you want to know, how old is this oil? Has it been stored properly? Was it in the shop window where the sun was shining on it? So is it really an extra virgin olive oil? How old is it? Is it fresh oil? Olive oil has 3 primary styles: buttery, creamy oil, generally golden in color, produced from fully ripe olives. The second style is what we call fruity. From mid-ripe olives, the fruity taste has got a little bit of leaf to it, faint green. You can taste the Licino olive, the Pendolino olive. And then the third style is the more bold, herbaceous, peppery oil, the green oil. Green gold, if you like. Just a wonderful oil for people who've never tasted herbaceous oil.
Tom, if someone wanted to give it as a gift, how would you direct them?
If I was buying oil for somebody, I would probably head toward the green gold and let them taste something they've not frequently tasted before. One of the questions we're often asked is, so how's California olive oil doing? California olive oil is doing superbly. It doesn't have a California taste. Olive oils don't understand national boundaries. And the quality of olive oil that we're producing in California is great. The only problem with California olive oil is the scarcity of olives. And that's been taken care of as more and more farmers see this as an alternative for their farming future.
Now, one farmer who sees a future in olive oil came to California from his native Italy and brings with him the old world art of winemaking and olive growing. Alicio, how many olive trees have you planted here?
Here we plant, say, 5,000 trees from Tuscany.
That's quite an investment of time and labor.
Like we say in Italy, you plant grapes for your son and olives for your grandson.
Obviously, after putting 5,000 trees in, you figured out that this is a good area for growing olives.
Yes, not along the coast or too close to the coast, but in general, say California has a good climate for olives. Like in Tuscany, you plant grapes, you plant olives. They goes well together. And I believe sooner or later, the people will buy olive oil by the label, by the producer, because they know that that producer is producing good olive oil.
Now here's a great way to enjoy olive oil by combining it with some garden fresh ingredients. I'm always looking for recipes that are easy to do, don't take much time, and taste great. A few years ago, some friends introduced me to a salad that's become one of my favorites, and it takes advantage of one of the all-time classic summer herbs, basil. It's called, simply enough, warm spinach and basil salad. And you start by just washing 6 cups of spinach and 2 cups of basil. I always remove any stems and tear larger leaves in half. Now this recipe is enough for 4 people, but if you'd like to make more or less of it, just remember that it's 1 part basil leaf to 3 parts spinach. Now let's make that warm dressing. In a skillet, combine a ½ cup of olive oil with 3 cloves of finely chopped or minced garlic and a ½ cup of pine nuts. Sauté these ingredients over a medium heat for a few minutes and then add 3/4 cup of diced prosciutto or thinly sliced ham. Watch all of this closely because it doesn't take long for the pine nuts to brown. With the salad greens blended, I'm ready to pour the hot dressing over them. Just listen to it crackle. As the final touch, I'll salt and pepper to taste and add 3/4 cup of Romano or Parmesan cheese. Believe me, summer never tasted so good. Another great way to take advantage of fresh herbs is by preserving them. Check out my herbal vinegar project at pallinsmith.com. Still ahead, tips for keeping wine fresher longer. There's something striking and beautiful about an orchard or vineyard. Its strict, regular spacing must appeal to our sense of order. This is the Galante vineyard. It's a relatively young one, but it's well known for its premium wines. These grapes will not be harvested until the fall, but the winemaker's art is a subtle one, and it requires constant attention to the vines. For instance, a good bit of the foliage on these vines is being trimmed away so more light can get to the grapes. This will encourage ripening and improve air circulation. Producing the best tasting wine is the goal here. To achieve optimum flavor, it's really all about the quality of the grape and not quantity. So a certain percentage of this year's grape set is being removed to help concentrate the flavors in the grapes left on the vine. Another crucial component to producing the best flavor is a long growing season, which allows the grapes to stay on the vines as long as possible. For me, the most ironic part of this whole process is that the best tasting grapes and the most flavorful wines don't necessarily come from the largest, most robust vines. Oddly enough, they come from those plants growing under less optimal conditions, those under stress. Kind of sounds like a metaphor for life, doesn't it? Another interesting part of Galante Vineyards is their use of roses. Owner Jack Galante tells us more. Jack, how does a guy who's has such a passion for making wine get into the rose business?
About 1985, my dad started planting roses just around the vineyards to beautify the vineyards. He grew up in the old country and he saw these roses at the end of all the grapes. Roses used to be used as monitors for pests and mildew and things in for the vineyard.
Sure.
And we started planting so many roses and putting so much labor into them, we were giving roses away as fast as possible that we finally decided to sell them.
Jack, what class of roses do you grow here at Galante?
We grow all hybrid tea roses.
You get a larger petal with the hybrid tea.
You do, and of course the fragrance is there. They tend, I believe, to have a longer vase life as well. The stems, as you can tell, are very, very hardy, very thick. Even as they age with beauty and grace, and so they look wonderful even as older roses in the vase as well. There's a lot of petals per rose. They're easier to ship as well.
Tell me a little bit how you harvest petals and how do you ship something that seems to be so fragile?
What we do is we come out and we find the roses that are already quite a bit open, so the rose itself you can't ship. We take these buckets of rose petals and we bring them into our cold room. You chill them way down, and then what we do is we package them in about 30-pound boxes with some gel ice, and we overnight ship them to their destination. And then the people who receive them, we instruct them when they're ready to use them, just spread them, really just directly before they're going to be used, depending, of course, if they're used inside or outside, and enjoyed.
Yeah, just celebrate.
Celebrate,
That's
absolutely.
Great. If Jack's roses have inspired you, here are a few things to keep in mind when selecting hybrid tea roses of your own. Because their blooms appear so delicate, if you've never grown roses before, you might be a little intimidated, but they're actually very easy to grow. Roses come 3 different ways generally: already grown in containers, wrapped in a loose material or a poly bag, or bare root through the mail. It's been my experience over the years that when it comes to buying roses, you get what you pay for. For example, with hybrid teas like this, they're graded 3 different ways: 1, 1.5, and 2. With 1s being the best. Now the way I figure it, if I'm going to spend the time to select, take home, plant, and raise a plant, I want it to be the best it can possibly be. A stronger, more vigorous plant stands a greater chance of rewarding me with more blooms over a longer period of time. Beyond grade, there are other things to look for. I always go for plants that have at least 3 strong canes, and I avoid any plants that have brown, shriveled, or damaged canes. And I always look for buds, brightly colored ones on the sides of the stems. This means the plant is alive and well and will begin to grow at the first sign of a warm day. Up next, keeping wine fresh, and find out how a mistake forever linked a certain monk's name with celebration. Chateau Julien is a charming and beautifully landscaped winery nestled in the rolling hills of Central California's Carmel Valley. Winemaker Bill Anderson of Chateau Julien shared with me some of his thoughts on wine selection. So Bill, what is the deal with red wines versus white wines and the foods you eat with them?
Well, I think traditionally we've been told that white wines are to be matched with fish and red wines with beef, but I feel that what we should remember is that we're all individuals, the wines are individuals, and we can have fun with matching different foods with different wines, and I think the best part is to experiment with it and have fun.
When we open a bottle of wine and don't use it, what should we do?
Well, when you open a bottle of wine, I think the thing to do is to keep it cold. If you're going to have it overnight, keep it cold and try to minimize the exposure of the wine to oxygen. They have devices that are, one's called VacuVin, that will actually remove the oxygen from the bottle and form a vacuum and allow you to keep the bottle of wine longer.
So now that we know how to keep wine fresh, how about some information about champagne? Bill, why is champagne traditionally served cold?
I think champagne has traditionally been served cold, mainly because that's the way people like it. But on a more technical basis, the reason it's cold, because if it's, you want to keep the carbon dioxide that's in the champagne in solution, and if it's not cold and it's warm, then the bubbles are all going to froth out of the bottle and you won't have a whole lot of liquid left.
Why is champagne the drink of celebration?
Well, I think it goes back to the very beginning of champagne with Dom Perignon centuries ago, when he, by accident, made champagne. He didn't know he had done that. And when he drank it, he went to the other monks or the brothers and he said, "Brothers, brothers, I'm drinking stars." So I think from the very beginning, because it was so special, because it was so exciting, it's always been considered a special wine. The main difference between sparkling wine and champagne as we know it is champagne, the name champagne, is French. And the French believe that if it's not made in the region of Champagne, it cannot be called champagne, even though the sparkling wine that we make, for instance, in California, is made exactly in the same manner, the same grapes and the same process. It's just that the French feel that we should not call it champagne.
Did you know the cork used in bottling wine is made from the bark of the cork oak tree, or Quercus suber, which grows widely in specific regions of the Western Mediterranean? The bark of the cork tree is composed of tiny cells. The inner cell is filled entirely with air, and there are approximately 40 million of these cells in a single cubic centimeter of cork bark. We'll celebrate mouth-watering tomatoes right after this.
Plant 'em in the spring and eat 'em in the summer. All winter without 'em's a culinary bummer. I forget all about the sweating and the digging every time I go out and pick me a biggin'. Homegrown tomatoes, homegrown tomatoes. What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
Gary Ibsen is an organic tomato grower who's taken his love of heritage varieties a step further than most and started an annual event, the Carmel Tomato Fest.
Put 'em in a salad, put 'em in a stew. You can make your very own tomato juice.
I remember the first tomato fest I came to, which was out in the middle of a cornfield here in Carmel Valley. It was an absolutely wonderful happening.
Well, I think we had about 250 people at that event, and that was large for us at that time. We now have 2,000 people, and they're coming from all over the country.
In the tomato tasting tent, how many varieties of heirloom tomatoes do we have?
Today, I think we have about 300 varieties.
300?
We were not counting this morning, but I imagine it's somewhere right around that range of 300 varieties.
Now, you're continuing to grow heirloom varieties yourself.
Yes.
How many have you grown this year?
This year, I've got 340 growing. All heirloom varieties from all over the world. My complete selection is on the internet at tomatofest.com. The primary reason that I like to support heirloom seeds is to protect these precious varieties from disappearing.
Sure.
Because hybrids have some very good tomatoes, but you're not going to be able to go ahead and carry on that hybrid by yourself. So when people come to my tomato tasting and they fall in love with a tomato, they can take it home and it can be in their family for generations.
You have a People's Choice Award here for tomatoes and the way tomatoes are used by all the local chefs.
Exactly.
Tracy's going to give it the first taste test right here.
Ta-da! Curried lamb with summer tomato chutney.
The hot tomato is tasting that. Good.
I encourage people to experiment and collect their own seeds and pass on this precious tradition.
Yes, because once that genetic material is lost, it's gone forever.
Gone. And I think in about the last 30 years, we've lost almost 30% of our heirloom varieties. So I'm here to protect those as much as possible and to encourage people to get into seed saving. It's a great family venture.
Gary, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
A great companion to P. Allen Smith Gardens is our website, pallensmith.com. Log on to learn more about today's topic. You'll also get hands-on gardening tips, design ideas, lessons in garden history, delicious recipes, and crafts projects that will take you from season to season, all beautifully illustrated with thousands of colorful images that will inspire your creativity. Plus, don't miss Allen's free weekly newsletter delivered straight to your inbox, all just a mouse click away at pallensmith.com.
Today we've sampled some of the finer things the garden has to offer in great abundance. Olive oils, wines, champagne, roses, and even tomatoes. And there's much more on my website. That's pallensmith.com. I hope you'll visit and take away some ideas that you can use in your own garden, as well as some recipes you can share with family and friends. Until next time, from the garden, I'm Alan Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.